Hello everyone, this is Asra Sultana, Assistant Professor in Triple Department, working in ISL Engineering College. So today I am going to start the topic of Unit 1. That is, Unit 1 is nothing but general consideration of DC and AC transmission systems. So in today's class we are going to see about introduction of HVDC transmission and comparison of AC and DC transmission systems. So let us start our class. Okay, so let us first see what is the definition of HVDC. High voltage direct current, that is HVDC power systems will use DC for transmission of bulk power over long distances. Okay, so with the help of this HVDC we are going to transmit the bulk amount of power over long distances. So for long distance power transmission, HVDC lines will be less expensive and losses are also less compared to AC transmission. Okay, so the HVDC is usually used to transmit for the transmission of bulk amount of power over longer distances, because losses will be less and as compared to AC transmission, and hence that is why the cost of this HVDC lines will also be less. Okay, so HVDC will interconnect the networks that will have different frequencies and characteristics. In AC transmission, alternating waves of voltage and current travel in the line which change its direction every millisecond, so due to which losses will occur in the form of heat. So what is happening in the AC transmission? AC means what? Alternating current. So in the alternating means what? So in one cycle it is positive, next cycle it is negative, and the direction will be changing every millisecond. So because of this we are getting the losses in the form of heat. Okay, so all these losses we have seen: hysteresis losses, okay, eddy current losses. What are these losses? Already when we were seeing about machines, we have seen, okay, when we was telling about power systems, okay, 1 2, okay, there we have seen what exactly is this losses. Okay, so the property of the magnetic material is to restrict this change of direction of current from one direction to another direction. So losses will be occurring, that is called as hysteresis losses. So in AC transmission, losses will be occurring because of change of its direction in every milliseconds. So unlike AC lines, voltage and current waves will not change their direction in DC. Yes, we know this one. Yeah, right. So what is happening in DC? Voltage and current waveform will not change its direction in case of DC. So this will increase the efficiency of transmission line, because if losses are less, efficiency will be higher. So in a combined AC and DC system, generated AC voltage will be converted into DC at the sending end. So DC voltage will be converted to AC at the receiving end for distribution purposes. So this we have already discussed in the first class, introduction class. So what we are telling here, that there will be two ends, one is sending end, another one is receiving end. So sending end will have a rectifier station, whereas receiving end will have an inverter station. And at sending end, AC will get converted into DC, and at receiving end, DC converted into AC for distribution purpose. So conversion and inversion equipment are also needed at the two ends of the line. This is in case of HVDC I am talking. Okay, so in case of HVDC, we require conversion and inversion equipment at the two ends of the line. HVDC transmission is economical only for long distance transmission lines, which is having a length more than 600 kilometers, and for underground cables of length more than 50 kilometers. Okay, so HVDC transmission is economical means what? It is worth when we are going for a long distance transmission lines whose length should be more than 600 kilometers, and they are used for underground cables of having length more than 50 kilometers. So high voltage will be used for electric power transmission to reduce the energy lost in the resistance of the wires. Okay, so high voltage why we are using? To reduce the energy lost in the resistance of the wires. So for a given quantity of power transmitted, whenever we double the voltage, same power will be there, but only at the half the current. So power lost as heat in the wires will be directly proportional to the square of the current. So doubling the voltage and reducing the line losses by a factor of 4. So when power lost in transmission can also be reduced by increasing the conductor size. So larger conductors will be heavier and more expensive. So what we are telling here, that for a given quantity of power transmitted, for any given quantity of power, okay, we don't know how much exactly, but for a quantity of power transmitted, when we are increasing the voltage by double or two times, okay, when we are doubling the voltage, it will deliver the same power but at half the current. Okay, so current will be half, voltage is doubled, power will be same. Okay, so power lost as heat in the way wires will be directly proportional to the square of the current. So voltage will also be doubled but reduces the line losses by a factor of 4. So high voltage cannot be used for lighting or motors. So transmission level voltages must be reduced for end use equipment. So high voltage, we cannot use high voltage for end use, that is for consumption. Okay, so there are four stages of power systems. First one is generation, second is transmission, third is distribution, fourth is utilization. So for fourth stage, okay, for utilization, even for distribution also, we cannot take high voltage. Okay, we have to reduce that high voltage for distribution and utilization purpose. Whereas in case of AC transmission, we have seen transformers which will change the voltage levels. So as per our requirement, we can increase or decrease the value of voltage with the help of step up and step down voltages in case of AC transmission system. Okay. So transformers made voltage changes practical and AC generators were more efficient than those using DC. So these advantages led to early low voltage DC trans. So what is happening? AC is already good. So we are happy with AC transmission. So what is happening? Because there we are having cost will be less. Okay, although losses are more and efficiency is less, but will be cost of equipment will be less. Whereas in DC, cost of equipment initial cost will be very high. So in the early stages, in the earlier 20th century, only low voltage DC transmission were introduced. Okay. So practical conversion of power between AC and DC became possible with the development of power electronic devices such as mercury arc valves, which started in 1970s, and semiconductor devices as thyristors, integrated gate commutated thyristor IGCT, MOS controlled thyristors MCT, and insulated gate bipolar transistors IGBT. Okay, so this I have already discussed in previous class. Okay, let me revise it once again. This one. So introduction and history of HVDC already we discussed. So I am just revising here. So in history, what we have seen that first one was electromechanical systems. Okay. So in this electromechanical systems, first long distance transmission of electric power was demonstrated using direct current in 1882 at Miesbach Munich Power Transmission, but only 1.5 kilowatt was transmitted. So various electromechanical devices were tested during the first half of 20th century with little commercial success. Okay, so one technique attempted for conversion of direct current from high transmission voltage to low utilization voltage was to charge series connected batteries, then reconnect the batteries in parallel to serve distribution loads. So next we have seen mercury arc valves. So it was first proposed in 1914. The grid controlled mercury arc valve became available for power transmission during the period 1920 to 1940, and starting in 1932, General Electric tested mercury vapor valves and a 12 kV DC transmission line, which also served to convert 40 Hz generation to serve 60 Hz loads at Mechanicsville, New York. In New York, it was done. Okay. So mercury arc valves require an external circuit to force the current to zero and thus turn off the valve. So in HVDC applications, AC power system itself will provide the means of commutating the current to another valve in the converter. So converters built with mercury arc valves are known as line commutated converters, LCC. So this also we have discussed in previous class. Okay. Then came thyristor valve, then came capacitor commutated converter and voltage source converters. Okay, so out of all this, so important one is the mercury arc valve. Okay, so in today's class we are going to see little bit about introduction and the very important topic, that is comparison of AC and DC transmission system. So as I said earlier, so first we have to see so why we are going to opt for HVDC instead of HVAC, that already we have discussed. Okay, it's quite some time back. Okay, so industrial growth of a nation requires increased consumption of energy, and that is particularly electrical energy is required for the continuous growth of a nation. Okay, so that is why this has led to increase in the generation and transmission facilities to meet the increasing demand. So in our country, the demand will double every 7 years, which will require considerable investment in electric power sector. So so because of the higher demand, generation and transmission of power should be economical. Okay. So imperative of supplying energy at reasonable cost coupled with the depleting reserves of non-renewable energy sources has led to the establishment of remote generating stations, that is fossil fuel fired thermal station. Okay, and environmental considerations also sometimes will dictate the siting of power stations at remote locations. So when we take the example of a hydro station, large hydro stations are invariably at distances of hundreds of kilometers from load centers. So need to economize on costly investment in generation reserves, sharing of benefits in utilizing variability in generation mixes and load patterns have given rise to interconnection of neighboring systems and development of large power grids. Okay, so what we are telling here, that because we have to economize on cost and sharing of benefits in utilizing variability in generation mixes and load patterns have given rise to interconnection of neighboring systems and development of large power grids. So earlier we were having small power grids, but now we are having large power grids to uh, meet the increasing demand. Okay, so remote generation and system interconnections led to a research for efficient power transmission at increasing power levels. So increase in voltage levels is not always feasible. So that is why the problem of AC transmission, particularly long distance transmission, has led to the development of DC transmission. So why we are going for a DC transmission? So there were problems of AC transmission because of long distance. So that is why we are going for a DC transmission. However, as generation and utilization of power remain at alternating current, or DC transmission requires conversion at two ends. So as I said earlier, so DC transmission requires conversion at two ends. That is, at sending end it converts AC to DC, and at receiving end it converts DC to AC. So here in this diagram you can see, here at the sending end from the generating station will give AC power. So that AC power should be converted into DC power with the help of a rectifier. Then it is, after conversion from AC to DC, it is given to the transmission line. Then at receiving end, uh, from transmission line, whatever we are getting DC we are getting, that is given to an inverter will convert DC to AC, and that will be given to the load for utilization purpose, of course. So in first DC transmission between Swedish mainland and island of Gotland, so this was the first DC transmission. Okay, so at first mercury arc valves are used for conversion, okay, AC to DC. Then rectifier is used. As I said earlier, power electronic devices are used now. Earlier we have seen thyristor valves, mercury arc valves, capacitor commutated converter, or voltage source converters. All these were used, but nowadays we are using power electronic devices. So rating of semiconductor devices will be 10 kV, 5 kA, kiloamps, and 125 mm sized. High voltage transmission will be reached by these devices is plus or minus 600 kV. Okay, so the highest transmission voltage reached will be plus or minus 600 kV. So HVDC transmission has made a modest beginning in 1954 when a 100 kilovolt 20 megawatt DC link was established between Swedish mainland and the island of Gotland. So until 1970, the converter stations utilized mercury arc valves for rectification, and the successful use of thyristors for power control in industrial devices encouraged its adoption in HVDC converters by development of high-powered semiconductor devices. So largest device rating is now in the range of 5 kilovolt, 3000 amps. So there are two modes of AC and DC transmission. There are two modes of transmission, AC and DC. So let us now see the comparison of AC and DC transmission. So the relative merits of the two modes of transmission, that is AC and DC, which needs to be considered by a system planner, are based on the following three factors. So what are those three factors? First one is economics of power transmission. Second one is technical performance. Third one is reliability. So let us now see all these three factors in detail. Okay, so now we are into the main topic of our class today, that is comparison of AC and DC transmission. So first one is economics of transmission. So cost of a transmission line will include the investment and operational cost. Okay, so when we are seeing the cost of a transmission line, it will include the investment and operational cost. Investment will include cost of right of way, ROW, transmission towers, conductors, insulators and terminal equipment. All these things will be there in the investment cost. So the total cost is equal to investment cost plus operation cost. So investment cost will include the cost of right of way, transmission towers, conductors, insulators and terminal equipment. And now let us see what does the operational cost include. Operational cost will include mainly the cost of losses. Okay, so whatever cost of losses are there, that is operational cost. Okay, so characteristics of insulators vary with the type of voltage applied. So let us assume that the insulator characteristics are similar for AC and DC and depend on the peak level of voltage applied with respect to ground. Then it can be shown that for lines designed with the same insulation level, DC line can carry as much power with two conductors, that is with positive and negative polarities with respect to ground, as an AC line with three conductors of the same size. So what does this imply? That it will imply for a given power level, DC line requires less right of way, ROW, and simpler and cheaper towers and reduced conductor and insulator cost. So power losses are also reduced with DC, as there are only two conductors, that is about 67% of that for AC with same current carrying capacity of conductors. So absence of skin effect with DC is also beneficial in reducing power losses marginally. Okay, so skin effect and less corona loss, less dielectric losses. Okay, so dielectric losses are in case of power cables is also very less for DC transmission. So what is happening here? Corona effects tend to be less significant on DC conductors than for AC, and this also lends to the choice of economic size of conductors with DC transmission. So other factors that influence the line cost are the cost of compensation. Okay. So here in DC no need of compensation because no reactive power, so no need of compensation of reactive power. Okay. So DC lines do not require compensation, but the terminal equipment costs are increased due to the presence of converters and filters. Okay. So this is the economics of power transmission. Now, so what we have discussed here in this PPT, in this one, what we have seen that so there will be the cost of a transmission line include investment and operational cost. Investment cost is equal to what? Right of way cost, transmission towers cost, conductors, insulators and terminal equipment cost. Whereas operation cost is nothing but cost of losses. Then what we have seen? So we have assumed that insulator characteristics are similar for AC and DC and depend on the peak level of voltage applied with respect to ground. Then it can be shown that for lines designed with the same insulation level, DC line can carry as much power with 2 conductors as an AC line with the 3 conductors of same size. So DC 2 conductors and AC 3 conductors of same size. We are comparing these two. Okay. So this implies that for a given power level, DC line requires less right of way, simpler and cheaper towers, and reduced conductor and insulator cost. So power losses are reduced. Okay, power losses are reduced because we are having only 2 conductors in DC and 3 conductors in AC. And no skin effect, less corona loss, less dry electric losses, and size of conductors is economic, no need of compensation, and terminal equipment cost will be high because of presence of converters and filters. So now let us see for AC line. So AC tends to be more economical than DC for distances less than break-even distance and costlier for longer distances. So when we see the diagram here, so in this diagram we can see we have compared the cost of AC and DC. Here we can see the red line is showing total AC cost, blue line is showing total DC cost. So cost versus distance we have taken here. So this is a graph showing variation of cost with line length. Okay. So what we can see here that AC tends to be more economical than DC for distances less than break-even distance and costlier for longer distances. So break-even distances can vary from 500 to 800 km in overhead lines depending on the per unit line values. Okay, what is break-even distance? So it is a point where this total AC and DC cost will meet. This is called as break-even distance. From this point to this point, it is called as break-even distance. So what we are telling here, AC is more economical than DC for distances less than break-even distance and costlier for longer distances. So this is the comparison for first point, that is economics of transmission. So for economics of transmission, what we have seen, okay, so we have seen both AC and DC here. So distance will be, if distance is less than break-even distance, AC transmission is economical, and if distance is greater than break-even distance, DC transmission is economical. So break-even distance is 500 to 800 kilometers. Now let us see a second factor, that is technical performance. Okay. So first factor is over, economics of transmission is over. Now we will see the technical performance. So the DC transmission has some positive features which are lacking in AC transmission. These are mainly due to the fast controllability of power in DC lines through converter control. Okay. So the following are the advantages. Let us see the advantages. First one will be full control over power transmitted. Second one will be what? The ability to enhance transient and dynamic stability in associated AC networks. That is, no need to DC breakers. No need of DC breakers in two terminals. Third one is fast control to limit fault currents in DC lines. This will make it feasible to avoid DC breakers in two terminal DC links. So what are the advantages here? First one is full control over power transmitted. Second is fast control to limit fault currents in DC lines. So this will make it feasible to avoid DC breakers in two terminal DC links. Third one is ability to enhance transient and dynamic stability in associated AC networks. That is, no need of DC breakers in two terminals. So in addition, DC transmission overcomes some of the problems of AC transmission. Let us see them. Okay, so first one is stability limit. Second one is voltage control. Line compensation. Okay, so now first let us see about stability limits. So power transfer in AC lines is dependent on the angle difference between the voltage phasors at the two ends, and for a given power level this angle will increase with distance. So what we are telling here, the power transfer in AC lines will be dependent on the angle difference between the voltage phasors at the two ends. So at the two ends, two voltage phasors will be there, and the difference between these two angles we are concerned about. Okay, so for a given power level, this angle will increase with distance. So here in this diagram you can see power versus distance we have taken. This is a direct DC line and this is an AC line. So this is straight line is DC line. This is used in this is called as thermal limit, and this is AC line, that is stability limit. So maximum power transfer will be limited by consideration of steady state and transient stability. So power carrying capability of an AC line as a function of distance is shown in this figure. Okay, so same figure will also show the power carrying capability of DC lines, which is unaffected by the distance of transmission. Here, as we can see here, DC line is not getting uh, affected by the distance of transmission, whereas AC transmission is getting affected by the distance. As distance is increased, AC transmission is affected. So, but DC transmission is not affected by the distance is increased. Okay, only current carrying capacity of conductors is changed. Now let us see the second one, voltage control. Voltage control in AC lines is complicated by the line charging and inductive voltage drops. Voltage profile in AC line will be relatively flat only for a fixed level of power transfer corresponding to surge impedance loading. Okay, surge impedance loading SIL. So voltage profile varies with the line loading, and for constant voltage at the line terminals, the midpoint voltage will be reduced for line loadings which is higher than this SIL and increased for loadings less than SIL. Okay, here we can see here. So what we are telling in voltage control in AC lines will be complicated by the line charging and inductive voltage drops. So voltage profile in AC line will be relatively flat only for a fixed level of power transfer corresponding to surge impedance loading. SIL is what here? Surge impedance loading. So voltage profile varies with the line loading, and for constant voltage at the line terminals, midpoint voltage will be reduced for line loadings higher than SIL, and it will be increased for loadings which will be less than SIL. Okay, line loading greater than SIL, that is P less than Pn, and line loading greater than SIL, P less than Pn, and less than SIL, P less than Pn. Okay. So this will be shown here in the figure here. So this is the variation of voltage along the line diagram. So in this diagram you can see this line is called as P is less than Pn, and dotted line is P is equal to Pn, and this curve is P greater than Pn. Vs is V, this is Vx, and this is Vr. Sending end voltage, receiving end voltage. Okay, this is some distance x, and this is the length of the line. So maintenance of constant voltages at the two ends requires reactive power control from inductive to capacitive as the line loading is increased. So reactive power requirement will increase with the increase in line lengths. Although DC converter stations require reactive power related to the line loadings, the line itself does not require any reactive power. So steady state charging currents in AC lines will pose serious problems in cables, and this will be this can put the break-even distance for cable transmission around 40 kilometers. So next let us see line compensation. So for reasons we know as earlier, so AC lines will require shunt and series compensation in long distance transmission to overcome the problems of line charging and stability limitations. So already we have seen in the power system operation and control subject in the last semester which I have taken. Okay, there we have seen the shunt and series compensation in long distance transmission. Okay, so AC lines will require shunt and series compensation in long distance transmission to overcome the problems of line charging and stability limitations. So series capacitors and shunt inductors will be used for this purpose. An increase in power transfer and voltage control is also possible through the use of static VAR systems, SVS. Okay, so SVS is used in high power transfer. It needs in regular intervals in AC lines. So now let us see, next is AC interconnection problems. So when two power systems are connected through AC ties, the automatic generation control of both systems have to be coordinated using tie line power and frequency signals. So even with this coordinated control of interconnected systems, operation of AC ties can be problematic due to presence of large power oscillations. Okay. So because of this large power oscillations, tripping will be done frequently. Okay. Second one will be what? Increase in fault levels. Third one will be transmission of disturbances from one system to other. So in DC, uh, we can overcome these problems by asynchronous ties. So controllability of power flow in DC lines eliminates all these above problems. So in addition, for asynchronous DC ties, there is no need of coordinated control. So it is obvious now that two systems which have different nominal frequencies cannot be interconnected directly with AC ties and require the use of DC links. So what is these DC links? What are the types of DC links? We are going to discuss in the next class. Okay, students. Now let us see. So one more factor is a ground impedance, not factor exactly. In this second factor in technical performance, one more term is the ground impedance. So in AC transmission, existence of ground current cannot be permitted in steady state due to high magnitude of ground impedance, which will not only affect efficient power transfer but also result in telephonic interference. So ground impedance is negligible for DC currents, and a DC link can operate using one conductor with ground return. So ground return is objectionable only when buried metallic structures such as pipes are present and are subject to corrosion with DC current flow. So even while operating in the monopolar mode, AC network feeding the DC converter station operates with balanced voltages and currents. So single pole operation of DC transmission systems is possible for extended periods, while in AC transmission single phase operation is not feasible for more than a second also. Okay. So disadvantages of DC transmission, let us see. So as I discussed earlier, disadvantage of DC transmission is high cost. Okay. So first let us see high cost of conversion equipment, because all the equipment, that is rectifiers, inverters, circuit breakers, so all these are costlier compared when compared to AC transmission. We don't have this extra equipment. Okay. So difficulty of breaking DC currents, which results in high cost of DC breakers, is the first disadvantage. Second is inability to use transformers to change voltage levels. So we can change the voltage level in case of AC only. Okay, increasing and decreasing, step up and step down, whereas this is not possible in case of DC. So high cost of conversion equipment. Conversion equipment is costlier, and circuit breakers to trip the circuit is also costlier. Uh, and we don't have the ability to use transformers to change the voltage level. Fourth point is generation of harmonics which require AC and DC filters, adding to the cost of converter stations. So again, what we require, filters are required to eliminate the harmonics, and this will add to the cost of converter stations. Next is complexity of control. So over the years, there have been significant advances in DC technology which have tried to overcome the disadvantages listed above, except for second one, that is the inability to use transformers to change voltage levels. Now let us see what are these advances which are made in the HVDC technology. First one is development of DC breakers. So DC circuit breakers are developed now. Modular construction in thyristor valves. Okay. Third one is increase in the ratings of thyristor cells that make up a valve. Fourth is 12 pulse operation of converters. Then use of metal oxide gapless arresters, and application of digital electronics and fiber optics in control of converters. So when we are controlling the converters with the help of this digital electronics and fiber optics, then it is economical. So some of the above advances have resulted in improving the reliability and reduction of conversion cost in DC systems. So it can be said here without exaggeration that complexity of control will not pose a problem and can actually be used to provide reliable and fast control of power transmission, not only under normal condition but also under abnormal conditions such as line and converter faults, etc. So this has removed the need for DC current interruption in two terminal links. Even for multi-terminal operation, requirements of current ratings of DC breakers are modest due to effective converter control. So now let us see the next point, that is reliability. So reliability of DC transmission systems is quite good and compared to that of AC systems. So the reliability of DC is quite good than DC. DC is good than AC. So an exhaustive record of existing HVDC links in the world is available from which the reliability statistics can be computed. So it must be remembered here that the performance of thyristor valves is much more reliable than mercury arc valves, and further development in devices, control and protection is likely to improve the reliability level. As already I said that in the earlier 20th century we have seen the mercury arc valves, thyristor valves, okay, capacitor commutated converters, voltage source converters, etc. So, so the performance of thyristor valve is much more reliable than mercury arc valves, and further development in devices, control and protection is likely to improve the reliability level. For example, development of direct light triggered thyristors, that is LTT, is expected to improve reliability because of elimination of high voltage pulse transformers and auxiliary supplies for turning on the devices. There are two measures of overall system reliability: energy availability and transient reliability. So energy availability is defined as 100 into 1 minus equivalent outage time by total time into 100 percentage. Okay, where equivalent outage time is product of actual outage time and the fraction of system capacity loss due to outage. So next is transient reliability. Transient reliability is a factor specifying the performance of HVDC systems during recordable faults on the associated AC systems. So transient reliability will be equal to 100 into number of times HVDC systems performed as designed divided by number of recordable AC faults. So recordable AC system faults are those faults which will cause one or more AC bus phase voltages to drop below 90% of the voltage prior to the fault. So it is assumed that the short circuit level after the fault is not below the minimum specified for satisfactory converter operation. So both the energy availability and transient reliability of existing DC systems with thyristor valves is 95% or more. So average failure rate of thyristors in a valve is less than 0.6% per operating year. So it is common practice to provide redundant thyristors in the series string composing a HVDC valve so that the failed thyristors can be replaced during scheduled maintenance. So maintenance of this thyristor valves is also much simpler than the earlier mercury arc valves. So when we see the MTTF and MTTR, that is MTTF is mean time to failure and MTTR is mean time to repair. For various equipments, if you see, for thyristor it is 13.7 and 6.1 respectively. For converter transformer 16.1 and 1700 respectively. So MTTF is years and second value is in hours. Okay. So smoothing reactor 76.8 and 1700 respectively. DC filter 19.7 and 7.9. AC filter 12.6 and 9.3 respectively. So some of the HVDC outage statistics these are, okay. In comparing the reliability of various alternatives, it must be kept in mind that bipolar DC line can be as reliable as a double circuit AC line with the same power capability. So this is because of the fact that failure of one pole will not affect the operation of other pole. If the DC line conductor has adequate overload rating and if the converters on the failed pole can be paralleled with the converters on the healthy pole, then the pre-fault power level can be maintained even with permanent outage of one pole. Now let us see the applications of DC transmission. So detailed comparison of AC and DC transmission in terms of economics and technical performance leads to the following areas of application for DC transmission. So first one is long distance bulk power transmission. Second is underground or underwater cables. Third is asynchronous interconnection of AC systems with different frequencies or where independent control of system is desired. And fourth one is control and stabilization of power flows in AC ties in an integrated power system. So first two applications, that is long distance bulk power transmission and underground cables, are dictated primarily by the economic advantages of DC transmission, where the concept of break-even distance is important. So to be realistic, one must also assign a monetary value for the technical advantage of DC. That is, the problem of evaluation of economic benefits will be further complicated by the various alternatives that may be considered in solving problems of AC transmission, that is phase shifters, static wire systems, series capacitors, single pole switching, etc. So the technical superiority of DC transmission dictates its use for a synchronous interconnection even when the transmission distances are negligible. Now, at present, number of DC lines in a power grid is very small compared to the number of AC lines. So, this indicates that DC transmission is justified only for specified applications. So, although there are advances in technology and introduction of multi-terminal DC, that is MTDC systems, are expected to increase the scope of application of DC transmission. It is not anticipated that AC grid will be replaced by DC power grid in future. So, we cannot take a risk of replacing AC grid with a DC grid. Okay. So there are two major reasons for this. That is, first one is the control and production of MDDC systems is very complex, and inability of voltage transformation in DC networks imposes economic penalties. Secondly, advances in DC technology have resulted in the improvement of the performance of AC transmission through introduction of static VAR systems and static phase shifters, etc. So the rate of growth of DC transmission was slow in the beginning. In over 16 years, only 6,000 megawatt of DC systems were installed using mercury arc valves, and the introduction of thyristor valves overcame some of the problems of system operation, mainly due to the arc backs in mercury arc valves. Since then, the rate of growth of DC transmission capacity has reached an average of 2,500 megawatt per year. So the details of these HVDC transmission schemes in existence or under construction are given in the following table. So when we see the system or project, that is National HVDC Project Stagen. Okay, year commission is a 1989. Supplier was BHEL. Power rating in megawatt 100 and voltage in kilovolt is 100. Line length is 196 kilometers. Second one is NHVDC. Okay, year commission it was in 2000, and BHEL is the supplier. 100 megawatt power rating, 200 kilovolt line voltage, and 196 kilometer length line. Rihand Delhi 1991 to 92, ABB or BHEL, 750 by 1500 megawatt. Voltage was plus or minus 500 kilovolts, and length of the line in kilometer is 814. Then Chandrapur, okay, 1998, BHEL 1500 and voltage plus or minus 500 kilovolts, 736. So similarly, other two, Talchen Kolar and Balian Bhiwadi, okay, Simons for 2003 and 2009, and power rating was 2000 and 2500 respectively. Voltage was plus or minus 500 kilovolt. Line length was 1400 and 8780 kilometers respectively. Okay students, so today's topic I have taken the reference. As I said earlier, in this book all 5 units will be there. Okay, high voltage DC power transmission by Padiyar KR, New Age International Private Limited, New Delhi, second edition 2010. Okay students, thank you everyone for watching the video. If you have any doubts, you can always ask me. Thanks for watching. Okay, students, I hope everyone understood in these two classes that how what exactly is HVDC system. Okay, and what is the comparison of HVDC and HVEC. So that we have done it in today's class. Okay, students. So what we have done here. So we have done the comparison of HVDC and HVAC transmission systems based on the three factors, that is economics of transmission, technical performance and reliability. So based on these three factors we have compared AC and DC transmissions. So at the end what we have come to the conclusion that okay, for the short distances earlier HVDC was used, but it is economical to use HVDC for longer distances because losses will be reduced and hence efficiency will be increased. So although there are multi-terminal DC systems, advancement in the DC systems, but it cannot be replaced by AC system. Okay, AC system will be remaining like that, but there are advantages of high voltage transmission also. Okay, students, I hope everyone understood today's class. So, thank you everyone for watching the video.